So I've had inquiries from people who saw my previous video on how to fix an image that is out of focus or blurry. And I know this happens to a lot of us where, you know, you'll do a bunch of shots and you don't quite see on the back of your camera because you're not looking at every single picture that you take. And you just get a really great pose and you love it, but then you open it up in Photoshop and you find out that it's blurry. So I used to have this issue all the time when I shot Canon. I love bokeh, so I would shoot with my favorite lens at the time, which was my 85 1.2. And because I typically shoot full body, I would have this happen all the time. And I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see how out of focus this really is. So what do you do when you have an image like this? I did do I think it was a silent edit. I can't even remember that last one that I did. It was a friend of mine sent me an image that he took, and he said, what would you do with this? Well, what I like to do with images like that, especially if I love the pose so much and I can't imagine giving it up, is I like to paint it. Now, I'm a digital painter, so I paint on my iPad with Procreate, and I do traditional painting with watercolors and acrylics and stuff like that. So painting is quite easy to me. I'm very familiar with my tonal ranges, my values, and, you know, what that equates to is your shadows and your highlights and what brings things out and what makes things appear to go back in and things like that. So for me, to do this is like super easy. But for most of you, you know, if you don't have an art background, or if you're not really into drawing and shading and creating all of, you know, your own paintings and drawings, you might not be as familiar. Photography does have a certain amount of that in the editing process, but not nearly as much as art. So this actually will end up being probably a little bit more of an art tutorial as opposed to a photo editing tutorial. I just imported this from Adobe Camera Raw, so I still have a smart object here, so I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this layer. What we're going to do first is I'm going to do what I do in every single image, okay? I'm going to duplicate my layer, and I'm focusing on the environment before I focus on the subject. And what I want to do is I want to get rid of the elements in the environment that are distracting to my eye. And the reason that we do that is because your focus of this entire image, and any image specifically, especially if you are an artist and you paint, is always your first focus point is going to be your subject. So we can see here that the light source is coming from this direction, yes? And because it's coming from this direction, we have this pretty massive sun overexposed spot. And this spot here is very, it's the first thing your eye is going to be drawn to because it is the highest contrast between her dress and the ground. From there, your eye usually goes up and it'll go to the next one, which is her face, okay? From there, it's probably going to come down here, and this is another big contrast area. So what we need to do before we do anything at this point is we need to fix this. Okay, now there's several different ways that you can do it. One of my favorite ways to do things like this is to simply paint, and I'll show you what I do. So add a blank layer. You can grab any kind of foliage brush. I've got a ton of them in my little favorite brushes bundle, but you can also go into, and you can see I have a lot of Kyle's concept brushes in my favorite bundle. So make sure that you know in Photoshop how you can go and you can access all of Kyle's brushes because they're now free with your subscription to Adobe. So I'm just going to grab any foliage brush. I don't want to use a mixer brush because I don't want to use my mixer brush for this. So I'm going to grab something. I really like this leaf brush over here that I made, and I'm going to sample darker colors, right? Because whenever you're adding foliage or any other kind of plant, you want to make sure that you start using dark underlay, because when you build upon it, your colors will get lighter and lighter, and that in effect will make everything look more real and less like it was created somewhere else. Okay, so I'm just sampling the colors within the image, and as you can see, this brush really is awesome because it uses both of your colors that are available, and it just creates a dimension and everything that really works well to begin with. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm not worrying about being super accurate because I can always use masks and brush off the areas that I really don't want to be present in my art piece or my image. So I'm just going up to about here. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller and come back over here. So now that I have my first darker base, I'm going to bring it down a little bit around here so that it looks like she's standing on more of a pathway like this. We can also bring a little bit up in here. So I want most of the white kind of hidden from this. Okay, so this is a relatively good start. I'm just going to grab one of these colors and come in and just come over top of this other bokeh because I want to blur everything and have it look kind of seamless. A little bit more in here, just a couple taps because this brush really goes crazy. And now what I'm going to do is add a mask, and I'm making sure that my brush is black. I'm going to come over here and make sure this brush is black as well. And the reason for that is because it does use a double color in the brush. It'll access both colors and I want to mask it off. So I want to make sure both colors I've chosen are black. I'm going to make this brush super small, and I'm just going to come over and I'm using that same foliage brush to paint it off. And the reason for that is because I don't want some unnatural looking brush strokes on my mask to make it look like I brushed it off. Okay, I'm going to reduce my flow now down to around 20, make my brush just a tap bigger, and then I can come in and make it look a little bit more graduated away from our subject. Get rid of that one there because that one has no business being there. Okay, so now I'm just brushing this off away from our subject, and it's going to fade it out and make it look a little bit more feathered, which is again going to be a little bit more realistic. And come down here and do these as well. So now what we've done is we've managed to take away some of that big massive light source. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to just rasterize this layer, and what I have to do is convert it to a smart object first, and after it finishes converting, then I'm just going to go ahead and just rasterize it. Okay, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and what we're going to do is we're just going to blur it so that bokeh sort of matches the rest of the other bokeh in the image. And just remember that this is our first base layer, so it's not going to be super visible in the whole painting, or sorry, image. And we're going to add another layer. So now we've added another layer. This time we're going to go back, we're still on our foliage brush, and I'm going to bump up my flow to somewhere around 50, and I'm going to click this green and I'm going to pull it up so it's lighter and over to the right so it's a little more saturated this time. And my second color here is I'm going to pick another color, and this time I'm going to come up, but I'm going to come less saturated on this one. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So now I'm just painting that second color on to the foliage, and just keep in mind that this color here, I feel like it's not saturated enough for this, so I'm just going to undo all of that really quick, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to redo my color, but I'm going to choose one that's a little bit more saturated and maybe even a little bit more dark. So I want a little bit more saturated, so more in this color scheme here, and I'm going to pull my primary color towards the greens just a bit more and down just a smidge, and this I think is better. So yeah, this is way better. I just want to make sure that all of my colors, as always in any image or painting, are cohesive and they are in harmony. So this time these brushes look really good. Like they look like, you know, if you see a bush, the inside of the bush is dark, and as the leaves are closer to you, closer to the sunlight, then they get lighter, and that's the whole premise for this. And you can do this on any image that you edit or that you create digitally, and you're going to get the same effect all the time, which is super fun. Okay, so that's starting to look a little bit more realistic. And at this point, I'm just going to grab my eraser tool because I really just don't want this or this, and I'm not worried so much about keeping everything looking massively accurate. Okay, so now we have two options. We can add another layer of blur, or we can just reduce our opacity on it. Now, I think the best thing to do at this point is to go ahead and do 50% of the blur we did. So the blur we did last time was 17.6. This time we're going to go at about 9. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, actually 7.8 is perfect. So we're going to leave it there, and we're going to do another layer. And this time we're going to change our color to be a lighter value. And I think I'm going to go a little bit warmer in the oranges for this one, and we'll go into the oranges. This is more gold if I go over here, so I want it more saturated like that, and it needs to be lighter than our last value. So we're going to try this one, but I really did like the actual size that we did last time, so I think I'm going to keep it there. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you this way. So we're going to come in a little bit closer into where our subject is, more around here and up in here. I'm trying to cover up all those dark spots, but the scattering on this brush is pretty severe, so it's not easy to control it totally, which is fine. Okay, so I'm just going to do this and put a couple here, not too many. Okay, this time I'm going to reduce my opacity, and I'm going to grab my eraser tool once again and just get rid of some of these ones that I didn't want on my subject. Fade them out just a smidge, like that. And now I'm going to come up into my Gaussian blur again, and I'm going to go half of what we did the last time. So it was 9 or 7, so we're going to go about a 3.4 on this one. Click OK, and I'm going to reduce my opacity again a bit. Perfect. So what I'm really looking for is just the effect around here. I'm not really concerned with within the bush. So one more layer. Go back to my brush, and this time I'm going to reduce my saturation. Sorry, lost the word. That's what happens when you get old. Yeah, so reduce my saturation down to somewhere like there. Click OK. I'm going to convert this other color here somewhere closer to the whites. All right. I think I'm going to leave the lighter color as a 4 color and just see what we got. I'm going to reduce my flow down to about 23, and we're just going to add, actually undo that, the brush was too big, because these ones are more specular, so they should be, let me just undo that, was a blob. Okay, so now we're doing our more specular highlights as if the sun was touching the tips of the foliage. Okay, so just the tips. And if you want them to be more specular, just make your brush a little bit smaller. Again, I'm focusing on the perimeter. Down here. Like I said, guys, I'm going to try and do this quick. I know that already I'm well into this for the environment. I think sometimes I just don't know how to do things quick. Okay. So that's pretty good. Add a little bit in here. Don't be afraid to go over your initial foliage area with the sun spackle part of this. Like this. And then grab your eraser brush again and just get rid of the ones that maybe got too close to your subject Or over here, like this was a bit much, didn't really like that terribly. Or that one, and just erase it off. You can always use your mask too. I've been doing so much drawing during the pandemic now on my iPad Procreate, and I don't like to mask too much on it just because I'm lazy, so I'm back to using my eraser brush for most things. So there you have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in and merge all of these because they're all in normal blend mode, so we don't have to worry about having blend mode issues. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my blur tool and come in and just affect the edges of the whole bundle. So the ones closer to the back are going to be a little bit more blurry, and the ones that are closer to the front will be likely a little bit more in focus. I can see here that I do have some foliage on her dress still, so I'll go back and I'll address that. So I hope you all are, managing to stay relatively sane during this pandemic. I know for me, I really, really miss shooting, but it's also given me an opportunity to get back into my first love, which was art and drawing and stuff like that. So that actually has made me pretty happy. Except, oops, what did I do? See, I thought I was working on a mask. Silly girl. Such a silly girl. Okay, so I think that's relatively good. Maybe just a little bit more in here. I don't want it to be too different from the rest of the image as far as, the bokeh goes. Sometimes I feel like just using the blur tool like this, you have a little bit more control than if you just go ahead and put a Gaussian blur on the whole entire thing. Okay, so let's just look at the before once my little wheel of death stops going. I don't know, guys, ever since I did my last update, my system seems to be struggling. So do you see that? And a lot of times what I'll do as well is I'll duplicate this layer, duplicate it so it's like that, and then I'll change the top layer blend mode to something like screen, and then I'll reduce the opacity of it, or I'll do this and then I'll put a mask on it, and I will grab a soft brush and then I'll just take it off the darker part, and then that way it's, we've still got everything we want there, but it's a quick, easy way to kind of dodge and burn it without getting into dodging and burning. So this is good because it just keeps what's already dark, and it makes the stuff in the sunlight a little bit brighter. And I think that looks super good. But I do want to get rid of some of the dark spots in the background. So I'm going to go to my layer 1 and I'm going to put a blank layer above it. And I'm just going to sample one of the colors in the back here. And I'm not going to worry about getting it on my subject at this point because I can mask it off. And I also know that this is going behind my bush that I just created because I've got it beneath those layers. So we're just going to come in and just add a little bit more of like a magical misty feel to this, which is something that I do. If you follow me at all on Instagram or anything, you'll see that I do this in a lot of my images that I make. Laggy brushes, laggy. It's kind of annoying me. Okay, so I'm going to actually do one right on top, and I'm going to do the same thing. And what this does is it actually will just kind of blend in everything else a little bit more too. Okay, so by using, and I'm at what, 23% flow, and guys, I never use opacity. This should be at 100. I never touch my opacity. I just work with flow. Okay, so now we've done both of those. Reduce that one down just a smidge, but I'm gonna have to mask both of these suckers off. So up to 100, reduce the size of that brush so that it doesn't spray too much off of the area I want to affect, and just mask it off like so. So this lovely lady I shot in LA a couple of years ago, she's married to the fella that owns Tap Out clothing line. And my husband and I were in the area and she got in touch and we set up a shoot. So that was fun. Okay, so go back up here, mask this off, and then we're going to make sure we get all of this off this other part of her dress. Now you can see the sun flare on the dress, and it looks like it's still part of the brush that I did, but it's not. It's part of the sun flare from the bouncing off the, you know, the whole environment. So, but I'll show you how we'll fix that. But we'll just take a look at this, and I mean, I really should add some more bushes in here and stuff, but what I might do is just take a look at, actually what I might do is just mask that off there. I'm just gonna throw a mask in. I might just reduce my flow and just see if I can minimize that a bit. Add another blank layer. Now I can grab this color and I can very lightly paint it over here and here, and this will just kind of blend everything in again as well on the bottom. And I think that's kind of key, and what a lot of people that I've seen anyway don't realize is that, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, how do you get that painterly look? Because I'm kind of applying a lot of my art ideas and art ways to photo editing. And I just think if people are really interested in the more painterly look, what you should really do is start following artists and start seeing how they apply light and tones and values, and you're going to find that a lot of your images are going to come back looking way more painterly. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put these into a group really quick and just call it environment. And now we're going to focus on our subject and getting this painting done. I still have to do some darker dodging and burning in here, or I can do some curves adjustments, which is probably what I'll end up doing. But let's really importantly, now we need to come in and take a look at our subject. So as you can see from this, she is so freaking soft, and that is the main reason why I left Canon and went to Sony. Now, were I to shoot the same subject with my 85G Master under the same circumstances, everything identical settings, she would have been tack sharp and in focus. And I just couldn't deal with it anymore. Literally 8 or 9 images out of 10 would be like this. Because I do tend to shoot full body, I don't do a lot of really close in crops, which obviously would lend itself to making your images a lot sharper, easier. But when you're doing full body with 1.2, you know, I really wanted the bokeh. So what we're going to do is add a blank layer, and I'm going to treat this just like I would if I was doing a painting or a drawing. And I typically will just grab a soft brush like this, and I'm going to have my flow probably around 20. Let's start with 20. And I use a blank layer because I sample all the colors that are already existing within the image. All right. The first thing that we need to do is start painting in the skin. So if we look out, we can see that her neck is not, she's super thin, but she's also not 20 years old anymore. So her neck is got a bit of shadows and stuff forming on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to sample the lighter color next to it, and we're going to come in and we're going to lightly brush those away. Okay, and this is very much like painting, but you're just using a Photoshop brush. Now, the image is already blurry and soft, so we don't have to use our smudge tool or anything to get a soft look. And the reason for that is because it's already super soft. You can see by her collarbone here that this little crown on her chest is really, really deep, so we want to kind of minimize that by painting over it slightly so that it doesn't look so drastic. Same thing with here, and we're just sampling the colors that are already existing within this image. And I just use my option key on a Mac and Alt key would be on a PC, and I just go ahead and I sample as I go so that I can just choose the color that's closest to the area that I'm working with. Now we can see already here that this is a lot cooler color than her chest, so for that reason we're going to actually focus on using a closer, warmer color on this part of her hand. And just lightly brush over those shadows. And already this is starting to look a lot softer and less harsh in this area. So because she's got her back to the sun, this part here is in shadow. So we're just going to come in and emphasize that under shadow a little bit more, just to get a little more depth. Okay, and as always, as if you were painting, as we were all taught, you have to zoom out constantly so you can take a look and just make sure that it looks good from a distance, because when you're zoomed in super close or standing really close to your painting, you're not going to be able to see as much as you see if you move backwards. So now we can look at her face, and if we evaluate this, it's really interesting, the total contrasting differences between photography and art, because if I were painting this image of her, I would make a concerted effort to include all of the things that as photo editors we take out. So it's such a juxtaposition, and it's relatively amusing to me. But so here is the lightest part of her face. This is the darkest part of her face. This is the mid-tone. Okay, this is lighter than this. This is kind of a tell. I call it like an age tell, because regardless of how fit you are or how in wonderful shape you are, the human body ages is the same for everybody. So there's little tells, and we're just going to paint those away just oh so lightly. And you can see I'm still on a 20% flow, and I'm just going to sample all of these identical colors all around her face, and I'm going to paint all of the items away. And this is easier because it's not actually, you don't even need to do frequency separation or anything, because this is, I mean, everything's done. There's no texture in her skin. It's a painting, right? Like, it's so soft, and there's no way that you would ever be able to replace that texture. There is a way, if you wanted to really badly, that what you could do is you could come in and you could add noise, and a lot of times that noise will contribute to looking more like a skin texture. So all I'm doing here is I'm just darkening her nostrils, within her nostrils, and that's going to give us a deeper look. So it's always adding contrast, right? So that's what you want to do with these images, is you're painting back the contrast, which is going to define all of the areas of the image that have somehow disappeared with the blurriness of the equipment. So again, just sample and paint, sample and paint, sample and paint. In many ways, this is a very relaxing, enjoyable activity if you just throw on some music and just sample and paint away. But just remember, you know, especially when you're starting out, zoom out. Take a look, turn your layer on and off, turn it on and off, and see what you've done. So do you see the difference here, how much better that looks already? So zoom in and then continue. And for those of you that find that you really like doing this, I really encourage you to try painting, because this is the same thing. And I love digital, I love working on Procreate and all that other stuff, but there's nothing quite like traditional painting. Putting, you know, pen to paper and paint to a canvas or to paper, there's nothing like it, because for you to be able to do that and create something on your own is kind of more rewarding than photography, in my mind anyways. Okay, so just focusing on her cheekbones here, we're just going to emphasize them a bit more. And if you want, let's say that you feel that her jaw is a little bit too wide, all you have to do is darken it. Just add a couple swipes of a darker color, and that's just going to narrow her face a little bit more without actually, you know, going into liquefy and changing her. So as you can see here, I just broadened the highlight on her nose earlier, and I'm just going to get rid of that little bump there. And I think we need a better transition between these two colors. There, like that. Okay, I think that's good for fixing the skin to the point. There's a bit of an issue here that I see when I zoom out, so I'm going to paint that back subtly with a lighter color right next to it. We just want our transitions to be pretty good. And this shadow here is, I think, a little bit lower than this one. So just come in. And it's okay if there are different colors in the face. It would amaze you actually if you held a cursor or an eyedropper over various parts of people's faces and saw the amazingly different colors that are in the skin. And I encourage you to leave them, because that really makes us human. Nobody's a perfect peach or a perfect dark or a perfect light. We're all perfectly imperfect, really. Okay, so let's just zoom out once again, before and after. Before and after. Okay, so that is face, neck. All right, so new layer. So this one now we're going to focus on her eyes. So let's see. I know for a fact that she was wearing contacts and they were like a bluey green color. I love using my Colorist 2.5, but I find that it's really freezing a lot lately and it's driving me a little nutty. I don't know why. So we're gonna choose like a bluish gray, probably something like that. As you can see with this, there is not a lot happening as far as detail in these eyes, so it's up to us to actually create it. So what you need to do is just be really familiar. What you can do is either use, you know, anatomy, or if this is an image of someone that you've shot and you have a clearer one, just pull that one up and put it in, pop it in the window next to this window, and that way you can just look and see exactly what it is you should be doing. But I don't have one handy right now, so I'm just going to come in and start painting in this lighter color into her eyes, and just think about how the iris is. And this is my first little layer. So her pupils right about here, this is like the catch light closer to her eyelashes. And that's nice, that looks pretty good. And now a new layer, and I'm going to just go up in brightness on this one and reduce the size, and I'm going to just add a couple little kind of lines in here. I want my flow up a bit more for this, about 25. So just a couple lines. Like that. My brush is a bit bigger. Now I'm going to add a little bit of light to the whites of her eyes in here. Just a bit though, guys. Don't do too much or it will start to look really weird. Okay, and zoom out, so take a look, and you can see that that's starting to look a little bit less blurry. Just make that highlight on her pupil a little bit brighter. Right about there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think I want more light gray, less blue, and I'm just going to oh so lightly enhance that waterline. Just lightly, and reduce the size of your brush accordingly. And what this will do is it will just make her eyes appear a little bit bigger. And this is just the base, okay guys? because when we get down to our final details, that's when all the magic really, really, really happens. So we might have to come in here and do a little bit of liquefy just to fix the shape of the nostrils and stuff like that, and bring this one out. If I undo that, let me try something else first, because I don't want her. So I'm sampling a darker color, and instead of using liquefy, I'm just going to paint more iris into this area so that it looks more like this one. So just around like this, and use this color here and just make that a little bit bigger that way. That's better. And this one as well. So sample that and just straighten this eyeball out. Like that. Before and after. Okay, we're getting there. So a new layer, and this time we're going to go black, right? So now we have the same size brush, but now we're focusing on adding contrast to that pupil, which will really start to make everything come together. Just like that. And it's important to get these pupils really similar. And because everybody's eyes are not exactly the same, it's not like you can, you know, just do one to one eye and then copy and paste it to the other eye, because we're not the same on both sides. So we have to do both. Okay, this is a good start. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. Now I'm going to focus on just adding in a little bit of contrast around the eye. And make your brush a bit bigger, and that you can kind of think about the eyelashes here. And all of this is just with the default soft brush in Photoshop, guys. And then in the corners as well, you're going to deepen these down. And the same thing with underneath where the eyeliner is. And above. And then what I'm going to do now is go back to layer 10 and add a blank layer above that one. I should be naming these so that you know what I'm doing. Okay, so this is iris. This one is add white to eyes. This one here is one I just added. This here is the pupil and eyelashes. Okay, so this one here is going to be the eyeshadow. And then what I do is I'll change the blend mode to overlay, and I like this color, so I'm sampling it, and now I'm just going to come in with that overlay blend mode and just follow that color, right? And it comes down here and it goes up like this. And then we are going to add another layer above eyeshadow and just call this Lid Highlights and change the blend mode to screen. And we're going to sample this color, let's say the lighter color on the nose, and then this one too. So we're going to just add a little bit of light in here. Like so, and a little bit on her brow bone. Okay, looks a little weird, but it's getting better. We're still not done by any means, but that's where we're at for now. And that's fine. I think we've done pretty much everything we wanted to do with these ones. So I'm just going to hit the top layer, which is the pupil eyelashes, and I'm going to come back in and I'm going to start really focusing on adding in some highlights and shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and group this and just call it eyes. Okay. Now what I need to do is really quickly, I want to go and when I do dodging and burning, I just use curves adjustments. So I have an action for that, but it's just curves adjustments, and I'll show you what that is. So in my dodge, here's a curves layer. I just go up in the midtones, and in my burn layer, I just go down, and I've just made an action for it. So, and I want a white brush, and I want my flow down to 1% and my opacity at 100, and I'm just going to come in and I'm going to start really refining the sharpness of this image. And because we were working on the eyes, I'm just going to continue. So I'm going to really brighten up the catch light. I'm going to come in and really start brightening up within this pupil area and the whites and along the waterline, and just really focus on starting to make this pop a bit more out. Looks like I'm going to have to increase my flow when I go back to doing that so that it can be a little bit more refined. But I'm in my burn now, and I'm just going to feather out the pupil a little bit so it's not, you know, too sharp and it doesn't look like it's just a big black dot that I just placed there. So I'm just going to feather it out and then come back in here again and really focus on deepening down the shadows underneath her eyelid. Like so, and come in here and just really focus on defining the eyelid as well in here. I'm just going to pull my flow up about 5 or so. Okay, so back to the eyeball, and now we're going to add in the darkness, which will really help with the sharpness. So usually around our eyeballs, the color of our iris is darkest on the outside. So we're just going to look at adding in a dark ring around. Like so, and then a little bit of darkness here, because when the light enters on the left side, the light comes out on the right. So we're just going to make sure that we've got all of that pretty clear, and just forming those little, you know, natural human shapes in the corners of the eyes. Like so. Again, emphasizing that waterline with our darks. Like that. So I really need to darken these eyebrows of hers. If her hair is that black, her eyebrows have to be significantly blacker as well. So I'm just following the exact shape and darkening them down. And with anytime you use the burn, whether it's curves or whatever, it's going to create more of a ruddy looking color when you darken it significantly like this. So I'll show you what I do to make it look a little less ewy. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my dodge, and now I'm at 6%. So what I can do is I can really come in here and I can just add a little bit of highlights in here as well as here. Little highlights on her lid. So these are just like little highlights that we all have because, you know, we have wet and we're human and we've got all kinds of little highlights happening all the time everywhere. So just highlights. I have to fix her nostril here. I'm not sure if that was me or if that's the way she's made. But as well as the Cupid's bow, you want to put some highlights on here where the sun would probably hit. And, you know, a few here. And then go back to your burn, and then you want to really darken in the crease in her mouth, yes? And underneath. So these are all things that got lost in this image because the focus wasn't good, right? So all of these things, I have to fix that in Liquify. But let's just zoom out really quick. And, you know, we're just going to close the whole dodge burn thing and turn it on and off. And then from this point, if you wanted to, you could start, I think with the darks, we'll just reduce that effect a little bit. And the dodge, we're going to reduce that off of the tip of her nose. It's a bit much. Right there's better. Right there. Like I said, always zoom out and adjust because so many times you think it looks good up close and then you zoom out and you go, oh, what happened? And reduce those. Okay, let's just go into our properties and feather that mask out just a bit so that it's not quite so harsh. Let's reduce that a little bit. Okay. So now we can take a look and we can say, okay, that looks pretty good. Yes. I need to do a little bit of contouring still. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten this now. And guys, I'm doing this because I don't normally ever work in layers, but I saved all of that. That's already saved in layers so that I can comfortably move forward without worrying that I can't undo anything. Now we're going to come back, do another dodge burn layer. And hit the burn, and this time we're going to come in and do some contouring on the perimeter of her face. And this is, you know, obviously sculpting and it's contouring and it can make people look thinner and stuff. So that's what's lovely about this. So underneath her lip again, once again in here, and you will notice that, you know, you will have to come in and do several of these highlighting and shadow layers in order to get a really truly realistic look sometimes, and it's just part of the process. So don't worry about it if you do one layer of dodging and burning and you go, oh, that doesn't look good. You got to continuously go over it and do them over and over again, and don't sweat it because we all have to start somewhere and learn somewhere. So if you're struggling because you feel like you're not really getting this yet, just remember that this is not a one-step monkey here. We got to go over and over and just work it until it's perfect. And I do want around her irises to be a little bit more contrasty. I feel like I took too much of that contrast out last time, so I'm going to add that back. It's getting better. Make it bigger. I'm going to work on right under the Cupid's bow here and also underneath the nose. So back to dodge. Just focusing on making spots here. Can also do a little bit of dodge in here just around the iris on this side. We'll add a bit of contrast too. Once again, working back those highlights on the lip. And you can see that the burns are really, really red, which is not ideal. So here's what you can do. Add a new layer, and you're gonna sample a color that is closer to what you want and just come in and paint over the edge of the redder shadows so that it blends, so that your transitions are a little bit more realistic. And then the same thing with here, so just come in and just on the edge of the maybe too red transition. And that fades it out a bit. Okay, so now in here, same thing with these transitions. Kind of choose your mid-tone color between the dark and the light and then paint that back. I just want the transitions to be good. And again, we're not dealing with any texture in this skin because there was none to start with. So that's really a non-issue for us. Okay, now what I need to do, because it's driving me nuts, is a blank layer. Choose a brush, a black color, and then come in and choose, I have these hair brushes that I like to use for eyelashes and such, and I'm going to come in and give this girl some lashes. So right now I'm starting with black, and I'm just going to come in and start painting on these lashes like so. And these ones as well. I'm going obviously a little crazy. You don't have to. Zoom out, add a layer mask, soft brush, and you can paint, you reduce your flow, you can paint those off just a smidge because they are a little silly, aren't they? A little silly. Okay, that looks good. Maybe fade these ones out just a smidge. Like that. So that's better. Now we've got all of that happening. I still have to go into Liquify and fix those. I'm still thinking that that little line underneath her chin there is just a bit too much. So I'm just going to paint it off a little bit. There. Better. Okay, zoom out. So we're looking better, yes? Okay, close that one. Go ahead and flatten it. I'm going to come into one more dodge burn layer. I know guys, but this time we're just going to add the highlights on her face. So we need some highlights here. Remember when they were right here before and I kind of painted them all away? And now we're going to go over to our mask properties and just feather that out again. Right about there. And then you zoom out and then you reduce your opacity to a place that looks pretty good. So before and after. So that's better. Okay, we're almost done. Oh my god, it's probably been an hour already, hasn't it? Okay, I do need to add some detail into her hair, so another blank layer, and her hair's black. So if we sample one of these highlights, it's kind of a gray, which is fine. I'm gonna go and grab one of my hair brushes, so I'll probably use this one, and I'll be about 50%, and I reduce the size, and I'm just going to add in a few highlights because the sun is behind her, so the actual details of her hair went away with all of the other details because it wasn't sharp. But these will just bring back some nice highlights, and you can determine where you want the shape of the hair to go. Now we're just going to make that a little bit lighter and reduce our flow down to half, around 16, I guess. That's good enough. And we're just going to give her a couple more. Okay. So zoom out, that looks pretty nice, but we do need to blur it, so we're going to come in and go Gaussian blur, and we're gonna zoom in and see that's too much, so we'll go to 2.1, it's a bit much still. How about 1.5, maybe 1.2. Yeah, that's perfect. And then reduce it a wee bit. That looks really good. I don't like this blob here, so I'm just going to add a mask and I'm going to paint that off, and watch, that'll be like actually there. Sort of. Okay folks, we're going to go ahead and flatten this now and hit save, but I'm going to save it as a second version so I still have my layers. Okay, so everything is looking good. Now I think I've showed you the majority of things that I wanted to show you. I did want to come in really quick and just liquefy her nose a little bit, just to make sure that those are the right shape, because I think I misshapen her nose a bit. This eye still to me needs to be a bit bigger down here. I think that looks a bit better. Okay, now there was one more thing I wanted to show you. Okay, I still have my hairbrush, so I'm going to zoom in, and because her eyebrows, remember I did change those, I'm going to sample this color again, and I'm just going to add some hair strokes just to soften them up and make them look a little bit more natural. So just a couple hair strokes. that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, now we're going to do some really quick color toning, color balance. We're just looking at her face and her skin. So we want to add in some red, a little bit of yellow here so that she looks like she's, you know, human. So see the difference there. I'm going to invert the mask and just paint it on her though, because I really don't want to increase those colors in the environment. And yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and paint that on her skin. That's good. Kind of matches her belt, so that's nice. Go ahead, layer and flatten, and you know, at this point you could also add rouge, or sorry, blush and lipstick. I'm dating myself. And so remember we talked about this. There's a couple of ways to do it. You can just go in and maybe add a contrast adjustment layer and see if that'll work, and paint that back on. So just invert it and yeah, come in and paint the more contrast back onto her dress if you want, or you can actually paint it the way we did the face initially in the very beginning if you want. It's entirely up to you. But what I did want to do before we leave is just show you how you can do the same exact thing with your dodge and burn on your foliage down here, because remember, you want this down here to appear like it's more in shadow, because we took a lot of that shadow away and we just want to add that back. So the shadow in the bushes here, because of the sun, it's all backlit. So we're just going to add that back and maybe darken up the foreground here too, like so. Just like that. And then back here we're going to add a little bit of more brightness. Like so. Okay, and I think I'm just gonna a little more lighten on her face like that. And I do want to add I've got OCD, guys. When I see stuff that is not the way it's supposed to be in my little pea brain, I have to fix it. It drives me. Okay, so that's good. Yes? Flatten. We can do some basic color toning and stuff, but this is really all I wanted to show you. Another thing you could do to finish it off before you do your color toning, just duplicate your layer, go to linear light, and then come in here to other and high pass, and now you can just go back like right into her eyes and see what you're doing as far as you know, making them super sharp because they were really dull, and just add a mask so that you can paint whatever sharpness on your image you want. So I'm just going to pull this up to like 9, and I'm going to start playing with sharpening it a bit. Her lips here, maybe eyebrows, maybe not her nostrils. I'm not digging her nostrils too terribly much. Around the hairline, a little bit of her belt, and that's about it. So that is after, and that's before the sharpening. Okay guys, any questions, anything you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me. As long as this happens to be our world right now, I'll try and do something every now and then. Just all you have to do is comment on a video and ask me, and I'm more than happy to do that. In the meantime, you can always join my Facebook group, which I'll post in the description, and there's a ton of people in there posting pictures and fun stuff like that. But yeah, stay in touch, and until the next video, you guys stay safe. Have a great day.